Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today I have with me Dr. Sophia James. She is a doctor of behavioral health and integrated medicine. She uses specific sound vibrations, patterns with protocols as systems for transforming our physical body, mind, and emotions and spirit. The three Malit, am I saying that correctly? Three Malete sound healing programs were transformed to online during the pandemic after using them for over 25 years with people in treatment for addiction, mental health diagnosis, trauma, and recovery. Also with cancer and other immunocompromised illnesses, in internal medicine with pain patients, and the 3-year transformational wisdom mystical studies program with people with a variety of spiritual awakening and transformative experiences. Dr. Susan is an advanced intuitive with different abilities and with different kinds of clairaudience that have contributed to the powerful effectiveness of the three Malete sound healing programs. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Lara. It's great to be here.
So I want to hear sort of about your evolution in terms of how you came to be utilizing this modality in your practice. I think it's very unique. And I'm very curious about how you evolved to this point.
When I look back, I go, how did that happen? But I had been studying with a woman who used shamanic drumming. And I also studied and became a medical and clinical hypnotherapist. And prior to that, I always had an interest in what's called super learning, which is about when we change our brain waves, we become more receptive to learning and healing. And so even though that, at the time when I read that book, it was like, okay, it was another book. And I had no idea how all these things were going to come together. And then I also studied with a woman here in Tucson who worked for the Tucson Police Department, finding missing children using photographs, and that was before cell phones. So she also worked with something she called Tibetan sound blowing, and I've never heard of anybody doing that since, but it was an introduction to different kinds of sounds at that time, because that was way back in the 80s. And those things all kind of converged, and I also didn't know at the time that I had all these different clairaudient abilities. And even though I don't consider myself a professional singer or anything like that, music is like I could just go play the piano when I was a kid. So I do have sort of this natural affinity.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about the different brain waves and how those factor into our health, or maybe even our receptivity to, like you said, being open to learning new things or releasing things that no longer serve us?
Sure. So our beta brainwaves is where we are right now, and it's considered being hypervigilant, which means that we're on high alert. And then when we have trauma and stress, we're really on high alert. And the stress response gives us or produces cortisol and inflammation, but they don't go away. They stay in our system as long as we're in that state. So when we transfer into relaxed states and states where we're enjoying something, or we get lost in our art or our music or walking, we go into what's called the relaxation response. And then specifically with listening to certain kinds of sounds and meditations and hypnosis, we go into those deeper states that are restorative, where we release trauma, but we unravel it, and we give our body a chance to restore. But also we tap into this greater place where we tap into our resilience and getting insight and problem solving, boosting our immune system from emotional and mental dysregulation to regulation. So there's such a long list of benefits that are considered epigenetic, meaning that when we're over there, we are changing the way our genetic responses are to stress that are predetermining us for the raft of common illnesses: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, addiction, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression. And so when we're over there in that other state, it doesn't mean that we need to stay over there all the time. I always think of us as we were never designed to thrive or stay in one level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have forgotten, we sort of forgotten that. And then there's all these different people who are picking up different ways to tap into that.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. And it's interesting. I feel like with social media and, all this focus on be happy, live your best life, it's maybe gives us a false sense that we're supposed to be in one, we're supposed to be happy all the time, or, or like never stressed out, or, anything, this, like you said, like even that is a different extreme. And so, yeah, we're humans. We're supposed to exist in a state of balance, but that doesn't necessarily mean like never experiencing anything, what you might perceive as negative. So yeah, I that's so true. So how do you suggest that we find that balance? Is there a certain like amount of time that we should dedicate to it, or
Well, in some ways you could say it depends on where the person is starting. I would say, so if a person is experiencing trauma and addiction, they might need to go into a more structure that they're in so that they can feel the benefits. So in terms of over a week, I would say to probably strive for at least consistent, because we're really changing a pattern of behavior that it doesn't happen in a snap. It takes a while for our body and our physiology, all of our neurological system and our habits to begin to change over into that and get the benefits of it, because it really is treatment, or you're going to have cancer and you're going to go do this for 6 weeks and then you're done. No state. We need to have that state as part of our normal functioning. I always think about in ancient cultures, they would gather people together and use sound in singing and listening and drumming, and as a way for people to become in resonance with each other. Because when you listen to the same kind of beats, rhythm, with your breath, like in a mantra or with a drum beat, your heartbeat and your brainwaves and your respiration all change simultaneously. So what that does with a group, it harmonizes the group together. So I always think that if people are going to listen to particular sound programs, to invite someone else to share it with them, because then they create this resonance, especially if it's someone in your family. It could be a teenager or a partner, or that they will benefit too, and you become harmonized in that way.
So how would you describe this type of sound healing that you utilize, like all the different layers? So is it mainly drumming? Is it a combination of singing bowls, or tell me more about that.
Okay, so what I'm looking at is the pattern and the rhythm and the repetition, because human beings are really hardwired for these particular rhythmic patterns that have like a sound in a space and a sound in a space. So one of the ones that's easy to identify with is the sound of the ocean waves. So there's a movement, you can feel the movement to it, and then there's a space. And that's what helps us kind of drop down into that more relaxed state. So the primary one that I started with, and it's one of my favorites, is the drum, certain drum rhythm, but there is also Tibetan bowls, and there is ocean waves. And then I also recorded harmonic overtone chanting, which is also will create that same kind of ability to connect to it and let go of the mind that's always talking to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how is this different than meditation?
Well, in a way, it isn't. Meditation does the same thing for us, right? But and what I learned by using this with people is that many people say, I can't meditate, or when I meditate, I have all these thoughts, I'm not good at it, it's really hard, my thoughts get in the way. And they say, oh, when I listen to this, I just follow the sound. So the difference is, in meditation, usually it's quiet meditation or still meditation. You're all by yourself, but the sound holds us because we are listening to the rhythm of it, and the rhythm continues. And so that sound pattern holds our physiological states for us, and we don't have to worry about it. So if there was a random thought that popped in, you just reconnect to the rhythm, and there you are again. So there's no struggle, and there's a confidence, because you know this is so long. It's a certain period of time, and you know you're going to be cued, and so that you have ability to trust. So what I like to connect it to is like a lullaby. For when children listen to a lullaby, they have familiarized themselves with the sound, the tones, it's comforting, and so they trust it. And so when you develop that relationship, you immediately go into that state, because you know you can rely upon it. You're not going, is this going to work, or am I going to have to sit here, or whatever. So it's something that you rely upon. So to me, that's a really different relationship than the meditation, because it's often sometimes kind of a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I can also see how in the application specifically, maybe to a trauma-based therapy, how having that very discrete container can relieve some of that anxiety that sometimes our brains can feel when it's too open-ended.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, a container.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a container, because you know the beginning and the end, and then the sound keeps you, it sustains you in that place.
Cool. Awesome. So, there has to be, I'm sure there's research out there that has been done on this. But for those of us out there that are not going to go and read the research papers, I'm sure there's going to be the question of, well, how do I know it's working?
You mean, how do you know it's working in yourself?
Yeah.
Or is there research?
No, I know there's research. Like
Okay.
I'm confident about that, but
Okay.
I'm also confident there's plenty of people out there that, even if we say that there is, and we can talk about that, but do you have some anecdotes about how, like maybe some, how do people can tell that it's working for them?
Well, one of the early ways when someone tries it out for the first time, a lot of times what I hear afterwards is, Um, you know, they'll go, how long was that? And I'll say, well, that was 20 minutes. And they'll go, wow, it seemed like 5 minutes. Or they'll go, oh, it seemed like an hour. So what that means is that we have agreed, we've been kind of acculturated into how we perceive time. And then when you move out of the brainwave state that we're in, our perception of time changes. So that's one way you can tell your sense of time is different. I would also say that in the beginning, when you start doing it, and even that question kind of tells you that they are not as tuned in during that experience of how their body has subtly changed. So the more someone does it, there's more awareness of that feeling of relaxation where your breathing shifts. There's kind of it's not like going less oriented to the space that you're in and more inward oriented. And then I would say there's kind of it feels good. And the feeling good is related to the research that says there's dopamine and serotonin that are the feel-good chemicals that happen. Yeah. So I think over time, people become more familiar with how that feeling is less subtle. At first, it seems subtle, but longer you do it, you're more kind of keenly attuned to those shifts in your body.
Okay. And so would you sort of also describe it as sort of like journeying, or, like I'm trying to figure out how to, sort of like similar to a guided meditation, but more of like you're guiding someone through more of a journey. Is that also part of the process, or?
It's kind of a blend of sound, guided meditation. I mean, if a guided meditation takes you down a road or something, or into a forest, I don't know if you would call that a journey. You could. So in the meditations, or in each of the different sound selections that I designed, they have a component that is guided, and then they have a component that's not guided, to allow the person to kind of develop and to be able to expand into that more advanced state. And then at the end, there's always, like meditation, there's a sound that brings the person back.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. And I read that you can also use some of your transformative experience programs in conjunction with psychedelic medicine.
Yeah. What I understand about the psychedelic medicine, it depends. There are a lot of people who are using psychedelics without a guide, and so it would be beneficial for them. And then people who have a guide, the program also could be for the guide to use with their person, because when you're using psychedelics, you're having this peak experience. And to me, part of the process of our transformation as individuals and culturally is that we need to access these transformational states where we get insight and resilience and release the trauma, so that's part of our evolution. And instead of a one-time experience, it's using that, building it into your system so that you can glean more from your psychedelic experiences and also access those peak states regularly. Maybe not in such a high, I don't know what you would call that, a different brainwave state when you're in a psychedelic experience. But if you train yourself to consistently go there, you can develop these different skills and tools of your consciousness, and also boost your immune system and your ability to regulate your emotions and your thoughts and get resolution. So to me, it seems they just go together super well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. So, how does particular sound and music develop our physical body, mind, and emotions, and all of those with those spiritual connections in the etheric system?
I consider that our neurological system is a component of our etheric system, and that when it can be like when we have a peak experience, it is potentially a gateway to higher understanding, but also trauma. And so when we're using sound healing, we start to restore that. So the trauma begins to get resolved as we move into those restorative states where the neurological system can repair itself. And having that continuous practice helps us stay in that state. And then the other ways is our etheric system starts to develop more because we're releasing kind of the things that are blocks to
Mm-hmm.
our resilience and problem solving and insight and inspiration, because they kind of go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So this is fascinating, and I am so appreciative of your time and your willingness to be with us today. How do people find you and work with you?
My website, 3melete, is the number 3, melete.com, and the programs are on there. And I have a YouTube channel, 3melete Sound Healing. I'm on Facebook and getting on TikTok and let's see, Twitter.
All
Yeah,
the socials.
yeah, all those social media places, and getting on all of them. So yeah, that's how you get in touch with me.
Okay, fantastic. Well, is there anything else that you want to bring forward before we wrap up?
I just thank you so much for having me on your program, and that you asked some really good questions. And yeah, I think that sound healing was predicted by Edgar Casey ages ago. I think it was the 50s, about how it would be the next wave in healing, and we're the range of applications. So in some ways, it's the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
So having programs that are very specific is a really different approach, and I understand it's very new to people.
Okay, but yeah, I would definitely encourage all of you out there to go check it out, 3melete.com. It sounds to me like there's a lot of healing power and potential, and just, being curious and exploring this modality for yourself. What have you got to lose? All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Susan. I appreciate your time. And
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome. And for all of you out there, for the links and all of the social media links as well, that lives at drlaramay.com/podcasts. And so you can find any information and references there. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, set your notifications for all of our new posts. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks.